everyone. Thanks for joining us in the Navigate and Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Molly O'Brien, and Elizabeth Sulock is joining us from the Newport Historical Society. She is the visiting curator of living history. Elizabeth, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you so much for joining us. So exciting happenings in Newport this weekend. The Newport Historical Society is putting on the largest reenactment in history. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on this weekend?
I wouldn't necessarily call it the largest reenactment in history,
well,
but it is
Newport.
The largest reenactment we've ever hosted.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So we've got between 75 and 80 reenactors coming who are traveling from across New England and the Mid-Atlantic region, and we're going to be recreating life during the 1777 British occupation.
That's so fun. So tell us a little bit about this. It's what is it, the 240th anniversary, right, of the occupation?
Yes.
Perfect. So tell us just a little bit about what's happening and why this is a great opportunity to kind of, well, not necessarily celebrate it, but to just expose people to the history of Newport and this occupation.
So anyone who's visited Newport knows that a lot of the historic architecture has survived. So getting to bring some of these reenactments to life is a really great opportunity. We get to kind of bring history to the location, or in this case, close to the location. So our goal for this event is to take key elements that happened during the summer of the 1777 British occupation and recreate them during the course of the afternoon. So the event runs from noon to 5 p.m. and it primarily takes place in Newport's Old Quarters, so the center of that being Washington Square, ranging from the Brick Market on Thames Street up to the Colony House at the top of the square, and then over to Lower Broadway at the Wanton Lyman Hazard House. And at each of those locations during the course of the afternoon, we've got a series of events that we're kind of recreating in various ways to show what it was like to live during the time of the British occupation.
And I really love how this is happening. You know, you're kind of starting it. It says you're starting with an argument. So people just walking down the street that might not necessarily know this is going on are going to hear something, and you know, you kind of get caught up in the action. So all starting with an argument, but there's also different scenarios going on, like you mentioned, everything from a marriage of a British soldier to a local Newport woman, and so there's all these just different scenarios that are happening throughout the day. Can you tell me just a little bit more about what people are able to see and even kind of partake in themselves?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the reenactment takes place right in the middle of downtown Newport. So you get people who don't necessarily know that this is going on, and you get people who come very prepared, excited to engage with their reenactors. So it makes a really great hybrid for living history programming. So as I mentioned, at noon, we're going to start with a debate, and then we've got an auction that will take place at 1 o'clock and 2:30, where people can bid on 18th century items. They're not necessarily going to be buying those items, but they can kind of get that back and forth and kind of participate in the action a little bit. People are going to get to see some of the rebel sympathizers captured and thrown into a little mock jail and then either be released, or one woman will be drummed out of town for her support for the American cause, or some other people might be hauled off to the prison ship in the harbor. So it kind of brings in an element of street theater. And then we're going to close the event with the capture of General Prescott, which did not necessarily happen in Newport. It happened in Portsmouth, so the northern end of the island. But we're going to use that as a way to kind of show something that did happen in Newport that was an important point of the Revolutionary War.
Wow, that's really neat. I really like that idea. And I mean, I don't think too many people will argue with the exact location of the history. Hopefully no one does anyway. Talk to me just a little bit about the actors that will be participating. I feel like you have to be really into character and really committed, you know, to be wearing 18th century garb, right, on a hot August day. That's pretty neat. And to not break character, that has to be tough.
So we use a combination of first-person interpretation and third-person interpretation. First person is where someone is speaking from the past as if they are literally that person. So we've tapped key living historians to portray particular roles, and then they'll be speaking as if they did not know anything modern that is surrounding them, despite the fact that there are, cars and
cell phones and
and then there are people
cars
who are maybe newer to doing that sort of acting, and will be looking at it from more of a third-person role. So I am a modern person, and I recognize the modern surroundings that are around us, but I'm representing this 18th century person, and my viewpoints in the 18th century would have been X, Y, and Z. So it's a little bit of a combination.
I think that's cool and nice to be able to fit that balance and fit that mold, especially when, it's 5 hours of reenactment happening within the streets of Newport. So I think that's pretty cool. You also have an opportunity for visitors to kind of step into the reenactment and kind of help out the Patriots. It's called the Spy Challenge, and I should mention that the entire day to participate and kind of talk to people, that's all free. If you do want to participate in the Spy Challenge, it's only $3, so that's not anything. But talk to me just a little bit about what the Spy Challenge is.
Sure. So, battle reenactments tend to be very require the public to be very passive. They're behind a roped line, they're watching the battle happen in front of them. They don't necessarily get to participate in the history. And our goal is to really surround the public with history, to kind of make them a part of the history and to get to engage with the past. So we developed something called the Spy Challenge. It's kind of a take on a scavenger hunt. People can purchase a sheet, it's a handout that's got a series of questions on it, and it has little clues directing people to talk to particular first-person interpreters. And they need to go to that interpreter, write down a particular piece of information from that interpreter, and then the public is representing the spy or the intelligence officer. So they need to collect this intelligence information, and we ask them to get, I believe it's 3 questions answered, and then they need to figure out how they're going to leave Aquidneck Island. So in the 18th century, you were required to have a piece of written permission if you were a man, or if you were a woman or a child, you could travel from the island freely. So they need to find the right interpreter to get that information, and then they can head back to the Brick Market Museum and Shop, which is where they can obtain the Spy Challenge, and then they'll receive a prize for participating. So it's, I think, a great way for families and especially kids to kind of get to participate in the past and to think about what was going on here in a different way than you might if you were just studying this by going to an exhibit or watching a movie or learning about it from school.
Yeah, I think it's really an incredible opportunity. You mentioned if you go to a war reenactment, you're behind the lines and you see these actors engaging, and those are absolutely incredible. And if you do get a chance to experience that, I highly recommend it because